faithfully delivering value, exploring the best books worldwide. Hi, I'm Sally from Book Talk. Today I'll be discussing the origins of good and evil. Are we born good or born evil? The three-character classic starts with humans are born good, meaning we're all pure at birth but get tainted by society as we grow. Yet plenty argue we're born evil. Dobbs, the 17th century British thinker, believed people are naturally selfish and wicked. The origins of good and evil tackles this timeless question. But the solution involves babies who can't even speak or walk. Oh, you might scoff, thinking, what do babies know? But Paul Bloom, the author, found that kids really understand a great deal. Paul Bloom is a top American psychologist in evolution and development. Science magazine listed him among the 50 most influential scientists, and he's a hugely popular professor. His Intro to Psych class draws millions online and is one of Yale's hottest courses. He focuses on how moral psychology starts and grows. His approach is simple. Study babies to see if we're born good or bad. Since babies aren't swayed by parents or society yet, their morality is pure nature. His wife runs Yale's Baby Cognition Center. Together, they craft experiments to watch babies, gathering tons of firsthand info. They discovered that kids, before walking or talking, can tell right from wrong and feel fairness and justice. But hey, that doesn't prove we're born good. Kids also hold prejudices and biases. This leads them to naturally distrust strangers and do bad things. So, yeah, both good and evil are in us from day one. In this book, Bloom shares the newest research on human goodness and evil. It got rave reviews after coming out. Dan Ariely, who wrote Predictably Irrational, hailed it as fresh and deep, a must for science buffs and parents. Renowned cognitive psychologist Steven Pinker also believes this book is profound and sharp, with its research on infant morality being hailed as one of the most fascinating discoveries in 21st century psychology. All right, now I'll unpack the book's main content for you through three questions. First, what moral instincts exist in human nature? Second, what narrow-mindedness and biases exist in human nature? Third, what factors can help us become good people? Okay, let's start with the first question. What moral instincts exist in human nature? As mentioned earlier, Bloom's main focus is on infants. Some might doubt this, thinking babies just eat, sleep, cry, and throw tantrums. Can fussy babies really participate in experiments? Are the conclusions drawn really accurate? Because infant experiments form the basis for many of the book's arguments. So here, I'll first explain how psychologists design these infant experiments. After hearing this, you'll see the book's viewpoints are pretty solid. Getting infants to join experiments has always been tough in psychology, since nonverbal babies can't express feelings, understand instructions, or be controlled. After years of research, psychologists finally found that studying infants' gaze duration helps reveal what they're thinking. Gaze duration means how long a baby stares at something. It tells us what infants tend to focus their attention on. For example, to see if a baby can tell cats from dogs, you could repeatedly show them a cat picture. Once they get bored, the time they look at the picture shortens. Then, if you switch to a dog picture, you'll notice the baby perks up and the gaze time noticeably lengthens. This shows that in a baby's mind, dogs and cats are different. Similarly, if a baby likes something more, their gaze duration naturally increases. Likewise, if something surprises or threatens them, they might stare at it longer. Bloom used this gaze duration principle to design experiments, finding children have four basic moral instincts. The first moral instinct is a sense of morality, not chivalrously helping others, but the ability to distinguish good from evil. In experiments, Bloom's team created animations where a red ball tries to climb a hill. In one scene, a yellow square helps by pushing it up. In another scene, a green triangle blocks the ball, pushing it downhill. Then all three characters appeared together. When the red ball approached either the helper or hinderer, babies stared longer when it chose the helper, showing their preference. Adding eyes and eyebrows to make shapes more human-like strengthened these results. To confirm findings, researchers made puppets of the characters and let babies choose from a tray. As expected, nearly all babies reached for the helper puppet. In another test where puppet A's ball rolled away, babies preferred puppet B, who returned it, over puppet C, who stole it. Participants included infants as young as 3 months up to 10 months. These babies couldn't speak or understand the experiment's purpose. Since scenarios were novel, this suggests babies are born with innate moral judgment. The second moral instinct is empathy and compassion. Empathy means perspective taking. Compassion means caring concern. These emotions are closely linked. Understanding others' emotions often leads us to care about them. Psychopathic criminals know helping elders is right and stabbing is wrong. But they lack empathy and compassion, unable to feel others' pain, leading to cold-blooded evil acts. A serial killer confessed, "I didn't care about their feelings, completely indifferent. I knew my actions were terribly wrong, but I'd do it again without hesitation." Psychologists found psychopaths are insensitive to fearful expressions and rarely respond. Someone once showed a psychopath a set of photos, but he didn't recognize any of them. Which expressions in the photos represented fear? Finally, he figured it out and said, "Before I stabbed people, this is the expression they had." But in children, we can see empathy and compassion. Even infants just days old will become upset by others crying and often cry themselves. Many people think this is because babies dislike noise and cry to protest. But research found that babies cry more when hearing others' cries compared to their own. And if they hear noise at the same volume or the cries of chimpanzee infants, they don't cry as much. So a reasonable explanation is that babies feel others' pain, which is why they cry so intensely. Famous biologist Darwin also observed empathy in children. He found his son William, at 6 months old, showed clear sadness when seeing the nanny cry. And when children feel empathy, they show sympathy by actively caring for and comforting others. For example, many 1-year-olds will pat others' backs to make them feel better. Moreover, children actively help others. Psychologists found that many children will voluntarily clean rooms or help open cabinets and move things without being asked. Some might think this is because children seek praise from adults, making it a utilitarian act, not genuine kindness. But psychologists discovered that at least for 3-year-olds, they do this genuinely to help others. Psychologists conducted an experiment where an adult asked a 3-year-old to fetch something, but sometimes the request was illogical, like the adult saying, "Please get me a cracked cup. I need to hold water." Most of the time, the child ignored this unreasonable request and found an intact cup instead. This shows they're not blindly obedient, but sincerely want to help. The third moral instinct is a sense of equality. This sense of equality means distributing resources as equally as possible. Children have a very strong sense of fairness. This awareness doesn't come from school education, but forms spontaneously. Psychologists gathered 15-month-old toddlers and showed them 2 distribution scenarios. One person divided candy equally between 2 people, while another gave all candy to just one person. They discovered toddlers showed surprise at the unfair distributor, meaning unfairness violated their expectations. This awareness becomes stronger and even extreme in older children. For them, destroying something extra is better than unequal distribution. Researchers asked 6 to 8-year-olds. Mark and Dan both cleaned their room with 5 erasers to reward them, 2 each. Who gets the extra one? Almost all children chose to throw away the extra eraser. Even when told neither knew about the extra eraser, children still chose to discard it. This strong demand for equality appears in children of all ages. They prefer equal distributors. When distributing resources themselves, they instinctively favor equality. This fairness instinct naturally benefits building an equal society. But children's egalitarianism has limitations. Economists gave children two candies, keep both or give one to a candyless stranger. About half of 7 to 8-year-olds chose to share. But only 20% of 5 to 6-year-olds shared. 3 to 4-year-olds shared even less. When sharing with friends instead of strangers, in similar experiments, most children still kept the candy. So while children pursue equality, self interest often overrides it when personal gains are involved. The fourth moral instinct is the sense of justice. A common way justice shows up in modern society is through third party punishment, where people actively punish others who haven't directly harmed them. In the internet era, this kind of thing is even more common. For instance, there was a man who hogged a seat on a high speed train, acting all arrogant and refusing to budge. After the video went viral online, it sparked huge public outrage. Everyone criticized the man and hoped the railway department would punish him. So, where does this sense of justice come from? Psychologists have two different takes on this. One view says it's from survival of the fittest in human society. Humans are social animals. For society to run smoothly, it's best if everyone follows the rules. But some folks are selfish and break them. If we don't punish those people, more will hurt others for their own gain. And over time, the whole society crumbles. Groups with third party punishment mechanisms can keep people united and gain an edge in competition. So this behavior gets passed down through generations. The other explanation is that third party punishment comes from empathy. As mentioned before, empathy lets us feel others' pain. So when someone gets hurt, we share their feelings, hate the offenders, and naturally want to punish them. Third party punishment isn't just common in adults. In kids, it often shows up as tattling. Another study found that even 8-month-old babies get the idea of punishment. They prefer characters who punish bad guys over those who are nice to them. All right, so to wrap up the first part, psychologists found that babies are born with four moral instincts: a moral sense to tell good from bad, empathy and compassion to feel and care for others' pain, a sense of fairness and sharing stuff, and justice to punish wrongdoers. So we've covered the good side of human nature. Now, for the second question, let's talk about the dark side of human nature. The book mainly discusses two common negative behaviors: group preference and disgust. First up, group preference. It means people treat others differently. We subconsciously sort folks into familiar and unfamiliar groups based on things like gender, race, or language, favoring the first and being hostile to the second. This preference is also innate. As mentioned before, babies stare longer at people they like. Bloom's team found that babies cared for by women stare longer at women, while those cared for by men stare longer at men. This conclusion also extends to race. Black babies prefer black faces over white faces. Chinese babies prefer Chinese faces over African faces. Other experiments show children often prefer same race peers, thinking they're more likely to be good people, which sounds pretty racist. However, psychologists later found that children's racial bias is essentially a preference for the familiar. Children who prefer their own race often come from single-race schools, like all-white schools. Surveyed students come from racially diverse schools. They show little racial preference, but distinguish based on other differences. For instance, white kids are more willing to play with local accent black kids than with foreign accent white kids. Psychologists believe group preference comes from a need for alliance. Humans are social animals, and conflicts often arise between groups. If we can categorize people as allies or enemies before conflict, we can unite allies to defeat enemies. This habit has persisted from primitive tribes to today. Race is just one way to divide groups. We also divide groups based on gender, language, and even clothing. This psychological trait makes us hostile to strangers simply because they're from a different group. There's a Chinese idiom that captures this well: if not of my kind, their hearts must be different. As long as you're not with me, you must be a bad person. There's a famous psychology experiment to test this. Psychologist Muzaffar Sharif arranged for 22 American fifth graders to attend a summer camp. All were middle class white boys with minimal differences. They were randomly split into two groups, one called the Rattlers, the other group was called the Eagles. Sharif first had the groups not meet each other and spend a week independently in the camp. Naturally, the boys saw their group members as friends. In the second week, when researchers had the groups interact, Sharif found one boy yelled, "They're coming to camp!" upon hearing the other group's noises without even seeing them. Migger. The researchers then arranged a competition between the two teams, and the hostility between the members grew stronger and stronger. Although they were all white, they used racial slurs to insult each other, refused to eat together in the cafeteria, and each made flags to show their differences. The conflict escalated, even to the point of burning flags and destroying rooms. Just random assignment could make people oppose each other, believing the other is bad and they are good, which easily leads to various conflicts. From medieval religious wars to Nazi racial massacres, group preference has been fueling hatred behind the scenes. Now let's move on to another layer of evil in human nature: disgust. Here, disgust refers to a physiological aversion to something. Disgust is a powerful motivator for evil deeds. It's the opposite of empathy, making us indifferent to others' suffering. So, there are many ways to make people hate someone. For example, I could spread rumors that he hurt others before and served time in prison. But the most convenient and effective way is to make people feel physiological disgust towards him. I just need to tell people how dirty he is and how bad he smells, and it immediately triggers disgust, making everyone avoid him. Metaphorical methods are also effective. For example, the Nazis called Jews despicable parasites covered in slimy liquid. Many people also compare their objects of hatred to rats and cockroaches. We can accept differences in race, religion, or personality through rational thinking, but physiological aversion can make us abandon thinking directly. As Bloom puts it, people might fall in love with a murderer, but not with someone who has severe bad breath. As soon as he opens his mouth, we immediately dislike him from the bottom of our hearts. Psychologists have found that disgust is a product of natural selection. Every baby at a certain stage will feel disgust towards things like feces and vomit without being taught. So what is the use of disgust? The answer is that disgust prevents us from eating unclean things, maintaining our health. There is much evidence to support this view. For example, our expression when disgusted by someone is similar to when we smell something gross, both resembling gagging. So, disgust and vomiting both stop us from swallowing food. Psychologists believe that disgust likely evolved from vomiting. Additionally, disgust can also make us lose our appetite. And when people see disgusting images, the brain parts handling smell and taste become highly active. Disgust boosts our survival rate by preventing us from eating unclean things. It prevents illness, but when the target of disgust becomes a person, it triggers moral issues. Disgust makes us averse to others, thinking they lack humanity, making it easier to despise or even attack them. So, at this point, let's summarize the key points of the second part. Group preference in human nature makes us treat others differently, dividing people into familiar good guys and unfamiliar bad guys. In these two categories, we're naturally hostile to strangers, sparking various conflicts. And disgust in human nature weakens our empathy, making us indifferent to others' suffering and more prone to harming them. Since good and evil are innate in human nature, what ways can help us cultivate the good side and suppress the evil side to become a good person? This is the third question I will discuss. Bloom believes there are 4 factors in human society that can help us become morally upright individuals. The first factor is custom. The ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle said that the mark of a good person is turning good deeds into unconscious habits. In daily life, when we see an elderly person and offer a seat or help someone move things, do we think about it first? Not necessarily. Often it's a conditioned reflex formed by habit. Our bodies act before thinking, which is the power of custom. Being a good person doesn't require deep moral motivation. As long as parents provide a good environment, exposing children to kind acts, they will naturally imitate these behaviors. Psychologists had children aged 6 to 11 watch others' charitable acts, like donating money to the poor. They found that when the children donated themselves, the more they saw others donate, the more they donated.
Hmm.
The research also found that adults role modeling through personal practice impacts children far more than verbal education. The second factor is the expanding moral circle. Here, the moral circle refers to the range of people we care about. This term comes from the historian William Lecky. Lecky believed that as a person grows, their moral circle expands. Initially, people's moral circle is limited to home, caring only for relatives. Later, it gradually expands to friends, colleagues, and even strangers. Thus, people become willing to express kindness to more people. So, what factors expand the moral circle? A very important factor is personal contact. The more we interact with others, the more we can eliminate prejudice, see common ground, and naturally expand the moral circle. For example, children in racially diverse schools, because they often play with people of different races, are less likely to develop racial prejudice and won't place other races outside their moral circle. Another important factor is listening to stories. Stories help people develop empathy and see others as equals. Psychologists found that after cable TV became widespread in rural India, not only did more women attend school, but domestic violence also decreased. They believe this is closely tied to the influence of TV dramas, which convey values of gender equality, suddenly changing the size of locals' moral circle. The third factor is religious faith. Bloom argues that without discussing religion, any discussion on moral issues is incomplete. For many Westerners, religion is an unavoidable topic in life, especially Christianity, which permeates all aspects. Even presidents swear oaths with a hand on the Bible. In these countries, religion is a crucial force driving moral sense. Take the most familiar Bible, for instance. It's filled with various moral commandments. For example, the Ten Commandments teach people to honor parents, not to kill, and not to covet. And many stories featuring Jesus teach people to love others and not be selfish. The spread of these religious doctrines has profound impacts on society. Combining with earlier factors, it can be said that religious faith creates a custom environment where everyone strives for good, and through stories expands people's moral circle. In many Americans' views, religious faith is the greatest motivator for doing good. Some even hold radical beliefs that unless one believes in God, they cannot be a good person. Many Americans also say they'd never vote for an atheist president, believing atheists are selfish and potential criminals. Though extreme, these views show religion's powerful influence on morality. The fourth factor is reason. Custom and religious faith can be seen as external moral forces, but often, even without being told what to do, we can reach conclusions through rational thought. Take subway fare evasion, for example. No religious commandment forbids fare dodging, but through reasoning, we easily recognize it's immoral. Because subway operation and maintenance require funding. If everyone evades fares, lack of maintenance funds could endanger all passengers' safety. As society evolves, more novel situations will emerge. Determining how to approach them is where reason's power shines. Suppose future robots develop thinking capacity or even emotions. How should we treat them morally? As mere tools, pet-like companions, or equals to humans? Each scenario carries different moral standards requiring reason to find answers. To summarize part 3, 4 factors help us become good people. First is custom. Growing up in a virtuous environment unconsciously forms good habits. Second is the expanding moral circle. Through personal contact and stories, empathy grows, making us care for others. Third is religious faith. Its commandments and stories profoundly shape societal morality. Fourth is reason. Through rational thought, we discern right from wrong. With this, we've nearly covered the origins of good and evil. Let's revisit the book's core content. Through infant observations, psychologists found humans inherently contain both good and evil. Regarding goodness, we're born able to distinguish right from wrong, feel others' pain, care for them, demand fairness in resources, and punish wrongdoers to maintain group harmony. From the perspective of evil, we're born hostile to strangers, believing those not of our kind must have different hearts. Meanwhile, the disgust within us is easily triggered, making us blind to others' suffering or even driving us to attack them. Yet in society, four factors can help us transcend these instincts to become good people. These factors are custom, the moral circle, religious faith, and reason. That concludes our discussion of this book. Reading notes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.